So I took a bit of a break with my scene analysis slash breakdown series for Heated Rivalry last week to yap about Ilya's lack of television advertisements in the show as compared to Shane and what it might mean as a narrative tool slash device. So of course today I am back on talking about hated rivalry scenes and the little things I noticed upon several rewatches that are meant to delve further into the characterization and in the case of both Shane and Ilya foretell some matters to come, especially when you consider today's scene, which I'm sure you can already guess from the title. We'll be looking at the shower scene as well as their first sexual encounter, which happened afterwards. Because I think even from that very moment in Shane's hotel room, we get to see the facets of their relationship, the different angles that they bring on board, the care that is extended, the things that are left unsaid, and what ultimately all contributes to the amazing story that we got, whilst getting a spectacular view of both Connor's story and Hudson Williams' bubble butts. I give all my thanks and gratitude to the squats that gave us those asses. Of course, before I talk more about Hudson and Connor's bubble butts and the prime views we were blessed with, I would like to say a big thank you to my lovely patrons and YouTube members whose support have been instrumental in helping me continue to make content, especially since I started doing this full time at the start of last year, which was the last time I was in paid employment. And a special shout out to Lena, Sherry, and Holly for their extra support. You get all the hearts and kisses to mwah. If you too would like to support me on Patreon or become a YouTube member to enjoy certain perks, even maybe get a shout out, the link to do so is in the description bar. Now that that is done, let's come back to the shower scene and everything else that followed. Shout out to the viewers who did request I do the shower scene. And of course, if you want me to tackle any scene I haven't done yet, feel free to drop a request in the comments. But back to the shower scene. Like I always do with these analysis videos, I like to point to events that happened prior to set scenes as they often are meant to set the stage for what we're about to witness slash experience. In this case, we cannot talk about them hitting the showers without looking at the fact that the scene before it had them both at the CCM ad shoot, which I've already made a video about that. For those who haven't seen it yet, you can check it out. But what I find interesting though is the fact that after they are done with the shoot, clearly at this point, the director, the camera crew, everyone involved in the commercial are all packing up. Ilya is still on the ice practicing, which is why Shane's attention keeps drifting to him. We are meant to clearly notice that Shane is only half listening to what Yuna is telling him about his Reebok deal. His entire attention is instead caught on Ilya effortlessly skating on the ice. He catches Shane's attention based off of the attraction, yes, but also because Shane is absolutely obsessed with hockey. And at that moment, Ilya is doing hockey, is playing hockey, and Shane is here talking to Yuna. We're meant to get both. It's both desire for Ilya and also desire to be doing what Ilya is doing at that moment. Just wanted to put that out there. But the other reason I bring this up because I don't think a lot of people noticed that Shane in that moment isn't in his hockey gear, which is what he had on during the shoot. So clearly, at this point where Ilya is still in his gear, the gear they used to shoot the ads, and he's skating away, Shane Hollander has changed. And because we know he is our autistic king who is speaking to his mother, someone he respects, like Yuna is a hockey fan, yes, but there's also no denying it that a hockey fan she might be, but it doesn't mean she's immune to that hockey gear stink. So it is logical to assume that Shane at this point probably took a quick shower, changed, and came back out to chat with his mother in that moment. Something that she doesn't appreciate as much, by the way, because all it does is make her focus on the fact that he's now out of his gear and he isn't wearing his Reeboks, even though they have a contract for him to be perpetually seen in it. But that is beside the point. What we are meant to take away from that moment is that all the whilst Yuna is talking, Shane is half of her mind listening to her and paying attention to Ilya at the same time, because this is meant to represent the fact that as far as matters are concerned regarding Ilya, Shane would always find himself drawn to him, like Ilya is the stabilizing force around which his world revolves, and vice versa. Plus, I repeat, Ilya is doing what Shane wants to be doing at that moment, which is practicing hockey. Now, after his conversation with Yuna, she most likely leaves because we can probably make the assumption that CCM most likely paid to use one of the arenas as their location for the shoot. They probably rented the space out for the entire shoot duration. And logically speaking, as someone who has spent way too many hours on set shooting advertisements where we've rounded off at like 3 a.m. on multiple occasions, if you have an ad shoot that you think might run late or will take multiple days to put together, it's up to the location scouting team to also find a hotel that is close by to where the ad will be shot, just to make it easier for people to lodge and to go back and forth. So clearly at some point after his conversation with Yuna leaves, and Shane, who, mind you, had most likely already showered before at that point, went back in again. Now, maybe he got all hot and bothered about Ilya and he's still hesitant about voicing to himself that he wants Ilya and is in the shower for the second time to cool off. He's, after all, spent months at this point noticing Ilya, even as he tries not to, even as he pulls his eyes away and yet just can't resist seeking him out again. Or maybe somewhere in Shane's subconscious, is waiting for Ilya in the showers. I go with the second just because it makes more narrative sense and has the scene flow better for when Ilya joins him, because it then makes Ilya's decision fit better with what Ilya is assuming. Because it's important to know that since a big part of Ilya's characterization is the fact that he's big on checking in on Shane, not rushing him into what maybe he doesn't want to do, and ensuring that he gets Shane's consent for every step they take on the way. But I will get to that in a bit. As I was saying, Shane is already in the showers, scrubbing away when Ilya joins him. And then we see the little tails, eyes flicking in Ilya's direction, averting his gaze when he thinks he's about to be caught looking, only for him to look again because he just can't help it. Is unmistakably, irrevocably attracted to him. And in one of those moments, when he looks at him, Ilya is waiting. Their eyes meet. And because they are both naked in the showers, it becomes pretty evident that Shane is aroused. He scoffs, wanting to use bravado to skirt the matter. But then Ilya catches his eye again and very openly and pointedly slowly starts to jerk himself off. It is both to show Shane that in that moment there is nothing to be ashamed of. The attraction is very much mutual, and getting a stiffy in the shower with someone you very much desire is a normal way for your body to react. This is meant to be an establishment of Shane and Ilya's sexual compatibility on one hand, but also meant to show how their sexual dynamics work. Ilya leads, and in his leading, he always ensures to let Shane know, either through words or physical action, that what he's feeling or wants or desires is okay, is acceptable, is returned. Because remember, this entire story is set within the very homophobic world of professional hockey players. Just because Shane is attracted to Ilya doesn't mean that he could tell for certain that Ilya was not going to respond to him with a fist to his face. Ilya knows that, and rather than use words in that moment, he knows it's best to just show Shane and lead him into what they both want. Of course, Shane at this point realizes what is happening, says not here, and leaves. We already established that it's been in the showers for way longer than Ilya, plus I think it's a second shower for the shooting period. And so, of course, Ilya doesn't get done until much later, at which point Shane is already dressed up, and with how fidgety he gets by even dropping his shoe, we, the audience, and Ilya can tell that Shane has gotten into his own head. He started to overthink things, and in his overthinking, he's all ready to take several steps back and not follow through with this. And this is the point, the only point really, when we see Ilya actively push, even after Shane has said that they should forget what happened. Because one, Ilya knows that Shane has gotten into his own head, but also he's seen the signs that Shane wants him to. We already see in the early episodes that just as Shane notices Ilya every time the other man is in the room, Ilya also notices when Shane is in the room and his little tells. And so I am fairly certain that even whilst he was doing his practice skate, he could see Shane post shower and talking with his mother. And yet, when Ilya goes to wash off the sweat and the stink, there is already showered Shane showering again. That was a subtle way for him to read it that Shane was waiting for him, but not able to voice that just yet. And then Shane follows it up by getting hard whilst watching him bathe, and it's pretty easy to put things together. So when Shane tells him to forget it, Ilya smiles because he knows that that isn't what Shane actually wants. And so he pushes, is that what you want? Shane goes, yeah, sure. In the most non assertive voice ever, like he's trying to convince himself of this, which is, of course, why Ilya laughs and calls him a terrible liar. Takes that breath as he realizes that with Shane and this most likely being a first for him, he would need to lead, to guide, to nudge a bit, but he also needs to have Shane voice it clearly for him. I mean, it is pretty obvious from the get go that Ilya and Shane clearly have a dom sub relationship. Ilya is definitely a soft dom, especially when you consider some of his actions in the long game. But as I was saying, Ilya asks for Shane's room number, puts the ball in Shane's court. Shane gets to decide if he wants to continue with this, he can choose to answer. If he doesn't, then Ilya knows to walk away and would most likely accept that. But Shane gives his room number instead. Ilya gives a time that he will show up. And when it is show time, he arrives. I would like to give a quick shout out, of course, to the elevator scene. I think it's such a great way to establish that while Shane is panicking and dealing with the nerves that has him at first, trying out a suit for God's sake, Ilya's nerves are instead tinged with excitement and a bit of nervousness as well. Although that brief moment of him running into Yuna, and you can totally see his brain think, ma'am, I'm about to fuck your son. You don't want to be in this elevator with me? Trust me, I'm sorry. I crack myself up. Anyway, Ilya makes it to Shane's room. Shane wonders if they should talk, and Ilya instead walks him to the wall and they have their first kiss. I think it is very interesting to note that we actually see this happen a lot in their interactions when it was just them having sex. Shane always wants to talk first. Ilya can't keep his hands off of him, dives straight into things. This also happens during the tuna melt episode when he first shows up at Ilya's house, and so it makes the Vegas scene when Shane shows up wants to talk. And even though Ilya at first doesn't want them talking about their feelings, they end up doing so anyway. It makes that scene even more poignant. That is the first time since they started hooking up years prior when they talked before they fucked. Sorry, I just had the thought and I had to throw that in there. Anyway, back to the point. They kiss. Shane drops to his knees, gives his first head ever until Ilya pulls him back up. He's immediately worried that he did a bad job, which Ilya, who is the more experienced one, but who also from the very beginning shows Shane so much care, is quick to assuage those fears because he doesn't want Shane in his head during this moment. He knows that this is a first for him and he wants to do everything right for and with Shane that is consistent with his character. But he also knows that somewhere at the back of Shane's mind, the worries will probably soon start back up. So when Shane asks him if it's his first time, he tells the truth that it isn't. He brings up Sasha, but then takes it a step further, mentioning that it was a secret kept between the two of them since neither of them would want the truth coming out. It's a subtle way to hint at Shane that what they are doing now is a secret that he also intends to keep with him since none of them would want it getting out either. Just as his hooking up with Sasha was out of curiosity, the same applies to his interest in Shane, which is also why he asks Shane, do I make you curious? It is Ilya trying to get Shane's brain to note that there is that connection. This is their secret, and he doesn't have anything to worry about. And then, of course, they move to the bed, the moment when Ilya strips off the rest of his clothes and wants Shane to do the same. Shane points out that Ilya has already seen him in the showers, to which Ilya tells him that, yeah, I want more. It's such a good foreshadowing of how this thing that started as casual with and for them is going to lead into them wanting more. Hell, it has already done so. Ilya, even earlier than Shane, is able to make the realization. Of course, there is the cute moment when Shane is stripping off his clothes and Ilya finds it adorable and is looking at him with such a besotted expression that every damn person who was watching already saw as proof that this dumbass is already so far gone for Shane. He just doesn't know it yet. And then we are back to picking things up with the blowjob, but the nerves are back. And Ilya at this point is learning all the tells of Shane's body, what he wants, what he's comfortable or isn't comfortable with, what he's scared to ask for or do. And because he knows what Shane wants, but also knows that Shane can't bring himself to ask for it quite yet, he makes the move instead, stroking Shane's dick, asking him if this is okay. And that is all the encouragement Shane needs to roll over and pick up where he left off with the blowjob. And when Ilya notices that he's about to come, very well aware that Shane hasn't yet walked up the courage to kiss and swallow, he pulls away, comes on his own hands and attempts to leave, which of course leads to Shane huffing and he proceeds to sulk. But Ilya is just playing, and this is meant to establish their relationship in the bedroom. Ilya, one, would never leave Shane hanging. He's not that inconsiderate of a lover, but also, two, that these two are playful but also competitive as fuck in the bedroom as well, which is why Ilya has the let me show you how it's done kid and proceeds to blow Shane and swallow it all down when Shane comes. And to assuage any of Shane's misgivings, because remember, he knows this is Shane's first time. What is paramount at his mind is Shane's comfort. He is not going to push him to do something he does not want to do, even if it is him not wanting to swallow. So of course, when Shane brings it up, Ilya just tells him simply, I don't mind. Of course, he enjoys it. Case in point, the phone call with Hayden and the multiple smacks that was given and received in turn. But of course, at that moment, all he can tell Shane in order to assuage the guilt he's feeling that he was not able to reciprocate it is that he doesn't mind. Shane laughs at the absurdity of the situation, the sheer insanity of them hooking up. And you can see in real time as his brain catches up with the fact that they just hooked up. Ilya, who Shane is still backing at this point and who hasn't really seen Shane's face yet, mentions that he wants a cigarette. They have the argument about Ilya's smoking habit, and that is when the panic that has been building all this while finally sets in fully, and Shane gives into it, asking that Ilya is not going to tell anyone, right? Which is an interesting question for him to ask, considering, like I said earlier, it was clear that Ilya had already sort of entered this to him when he brought up the shared secret that kept them from their mutual shared destruction, that was him hooking up with Sasha. And he had implied then that this was going to be the same situation. Now, maybe I'm the only one that read it that way, but it felt like Ilya was a bit hurt at the lack of trust that was inherent in that question, which then translated to him immediately remembering his early morning flight, because he could also tell from Shane's facial expressions that he was panicking and he needed to be left alone. So it was a mix of guilt, but also him still being considerate to what Shane needed in that moment. And the reason why I say so is because it's a pretty abrupt change, considering that he had wanted a cigarette moments prior and would have stayed a bit longer if he had had one. But to Ilya, he had overstayed his welcome, and so he leaves after they both tell each other goodnight. And Shane, who is left alone in the room, has that deep moment of exhalation that is him further realizing the enormity of what had just transpired. It's a holy shit, we just did that, mixed with a holy shit, I really want to do that again, and a bit of holy shit, this absolutely cannot be allowed to repeat itself. But of course, we know that man proposes, gay Jesus disposes. And so these two lust driven dumbasses are going to collide with each other again very, very soon at a certain All Stars event. These are, of course, my thoughts. I would, as always, love to hear yours. Whether or not you agree with me, please share them in the comments. Like this video, however, if you've watched this far and haven't done so yet, but enjoyed anything of what I had to say, share it so others can find my channel as well. Or you can check out my gaming or ASMR channels if they sound like something you might potentially be interested in. I have them both linked in the description bar. I will see you tomorrow with a new video. Until then, do remember, obsessing over the things you love, perfectly valid coping mechanism.